What's up, nerds and nerdettes? How you guys doing today? All right, it is November 3rd, 2020. It's election day. Okay, guys. So I'm not going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you this. At the end of this video, I'm going to do a moment of Zen for you. I understand that there's a lot of stress that's associated with elections, even if I know that you guys, even though you can't vote. Okay, but just I was watching TV just for even like 20 minutes, watching the Bears game this weekend, and it was stressful seeing all of those ads and things like that. So I know that this is a stressful time. All right. But one thing that honestly, this is one of the things that American history does for me as a human being. Okay. American history, I love that when we go through these difficult times as a nation, which this election has been difficult, doesn't matter what your political leanings are, it's been tough. Okay. I know that we have gone through tough times before and we've gone through them. We've gone to the other side. All right. So if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling like, whether or not one candidate wins or one candidate loses, it's going to be the end of America. All right. Maybe. I'm not saying no. Okay. But I'm also saying that we've gone through times like this where people have had similar thoughts. Okay. So we're going to talk about one of those times, and that's the election of 1824. Okay. I'm actually pitting a few people against a few other people. All right. So, yeah. All right. So here we go, guys. We're going to talk about, first off, we already mentioned this. The election of 1820. So the Congress. Okay, going through this era of good feelings. I was air quoting, but you can't see my video, so air quotes, era of good feeling. Okay, was kind of chaotic. All right, so if you're feeling like you're down on the two-party system, okay, remember that more parties doesn't actually mean better. Okay, and at this time, we really saw that the Jeffersonians, okay, so the Democratic Republicans, now kind of just calling themselves Republicans, really need you guys to know these Republicans are not the Republicans that people are going to vote for today. Okay, this is a different party entirely. Okay, this is kind of like the descendants of the Democratic Republicans. This party is kind of going to go away in this election of 1828. It's going to kind of split up between the Whigs and the Democrats, and the Republican Party that we know today, the GOP, the Grand Old Party, that is going to come about. I think that the first candidate that they're going to run is going to be in the 1856 election. So don't confuse those. All right. So a lot of people kind of criticize that at this time in the after 1815, after the war, 1812, that the Republicans had kind of lost their way. Okay, and they had abandoned this, what was a core tenet of Jefferson's view of politics, of this idea that of states having equal authority as the federal government. All right, and this is something that was actually encouraged, okay, by the economic crisis of 1819. Okay, so this is the first time that our industrial economy really goes through a difficult time of speculation, and this leads to renewed criticism of the Bank of the United States and things like that. All right, Martin Van Buren, a brilliant political operator and a below average president. He sees this kind of chaos going on in the 1820s, and he capitalized on this, on starting to kind of get the inklings of making what will become our modern Democratic Party. Okay, and the brilliance of Martin Van Buren, what he does that is so brilliant is we've talked about this festering zit, which is sectionalism that's going on in the United States of America right now. All right, and it's really, and we're going to see here in a minute that the country is just divided down the line. Okay, by political ideology. All right, they're divided down the line by political ideology. And Martin Van Buren sees this, and he sees a common threat. Okay, so he looks at the common person, the banker. I'm sorry, not the banker, the farmer, the person that is working in these new industrial mills. He sees them being hurt by the financial system that's in place. Okay, and then he also sees that the slave owners down in the South that are worried that the federal government is going to encroach on what they think is a fundamental right, the ability to own other human beings. And he sees that there's a commonality here. Both of these people, both of these groups, the poor working class person in the North and the slave owner in the South, that they have a common interest against the federal government. Okay, so he's going to start to make the inklings of creating this. Okay, so we already talked about this. All right, Andrew Jackson. All right, Andrew Jackson is a really interesting political figure. He is an outsider. All right, so I'm going to make some comparisons between Andrew Jackson and Donald Trump just because they kind of make sense. Okay, Andrew Jackson, what was really brilliant about him is he took these things that were perceived as being negatives. Okay, they were perceived as being negatives about his character. Okay, the fact that he had no political experience. So he took that he had no political experience and he turned it into a positive. He went from being having no political experience to being a political outsider. Okay, he's outside this Washington mainstream. Okay, this federal government. Okay, he doesn't come from a good family. Okay, but all right, he turns that into a positive. He's self-made. Okay, he pulled himself up by his bootstraps. He was orphaned during the American Revolution. All right, and he kind of fought and clawed his way into being a successful military person. All right, so he is going to be the first person that we have that doesn't really have any political background. Okay, Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, all of those guys had experience, with the exception of Washington. They had experience in presidential cabinets. Okay, Adams was a vice president. Jefferson was a secretary of state and a vice president. Madison was a secretary of state and a senator. Okay, Monroe was a secretary of state. Even John Quincy Adams, who he's going to run against, was a secretary of state. Okay, so Andrew Jackson is this political outsider, but has this immense popularity because he is this war hero from the War of 1812. Okay, we got the Battle of New Orleans, which again, remember, didn't actually mean anything. Okay, so he's going to be this person that is going to draw this broad popular support. All right, and leading up into the election of 1824. Okay, so we had seen. Okay, it's kind of important to think about this, and this goes back to this question that we had at the very beginning of this. And I'm trying to see if I can get my my camera back on here. Is there a way that I can do it? I like when you guys can see me. Maybe it's because I'm vain. I don't know. All right, but this election of 1824. Okay, at this time, if we go back to the beginning of America, all right, we were a democracy in a very limited way. Okay, it was really only a handful of rich landowning white people that had the ability to vote. And slowly, as our country expanded, that right to vote kind of expanded to more and more people. Okay, we flash forward to like the mid 1820s. Okay, we've got the growth of industrialization, and we've got the thing that we're moving towards universal male suffrage. Okay, universal white male suffrage. Okay, I know that's a lot of qualifiers there. Okay, but to the point where if you were white, if you were a man, then you had the ability to vote for president of the United States. All right. Another thing about this is prior to 1824, candidates for the political parties were selected by these things called caucuses. All right, and this is where political leaders. Okay, so these really rich, wealthy people got into a room and they picked who they wanted to be their candidate for president of the United States. Okay, people viewed this as being very anti-democratic, and it was. Okay, imagine if for your student council representatives. All right, so instead of those people like choosing to like kind of like that they're going to run and they get certain signatures, let's just say that me, Bannock, Berkey, Miss Pierfelice, and Mrs. Kiesel, the five of us got together and we're like, Emma Compton, she's really good. All right, this Nikki Hartley girl, get her out of here. She's no good. We don't want her running. All right. Okay. So we're taking that voice away. We're basically saying, here are your choices. Pick between these. All right. And at this time, okay, we're moving towards being more democratic. That is seen as being a king caucus. Okay. It's seen as being un-American, undemocratic. Okay. So they get rid of that. Okay, which leads to this really chaotic four-way race in 1824. Okay, so remember, we only have one party. It's the Democratic Republicans. Everybody's a Democratic Republican, and we don't have a clear candidate. Okay, so we have four people that are going to be running for this. Okay, so going again to my from current slide. All right, so our candidates are, okay, we've got John. Get out of here. Come on. Interlude here. All right. We've got so five candidates to start off the bat. Okay, we're gonna see that we're gonna have John C. Calhoun is gonna drop out first. Okay, he drops out. Okay, and he becomes the only vice presidential candidate. So remember, according to the 12th Amendment, that you select both a president and a vice president. So John Calhoun sees that this is a crowded field. He gets out of it, and so he is basically guaranteeing that he is going to be the vice president of whichever candidate wins. Okay, next we see Henry Clay drop out. Okay, so no candidate wins the majority of electorates. All right. So what's ultimately going to happen is Henry Clay is going to drop out, and he's going to basically make an agreement with John Quincy Adams that if he drops out, he'll throw his support behind John Quincy Adams, and then John Quincy is going to give Clay the spot as Secretary of State, which Henry Clay desperately wants because previously that's been a launching spot to the presidency. John Quincy Adams himself was a Secretary of State. Madison was a Secretary of State. Jefferson was a Secretary of State. I think actually Monroe was Madison's Secretary of State. I could be wrong though. Okay, so it's a launching spot for that. Okay, so it gets down to these two. Okay, Crawford suffers a debilitating stroke. All right, and so basically, all right, according to the 12th Amendment, the House of Reps, okay, decides who is going to be the president, and they ultimately arrive on John Adams as president and John C. Calhoun as vice president. All right, so I'm going to throw this out here, guys. In today's election, let's hope not, knock on wood, because this would be crazy. It's possible that we could end in a 269 and 269 tie. Okay, there is 538 electors in the United States of America. Okay, so that means that you need to get 270 to get a majority. You need a little bit more. You need over a majority. You can't have 50%. Okay, so there could be a chance that we could have a tie 269 Biden-Trump. And in that case, it goes to the House of Representatives. I know what you're thinking. That's controlled by the Democrats, but it's not a one-to-one vote. It goes by state delegation. Okay, so that would mean that all the representatives from the state of Michigan would get together and they would decide, okay, how is the state of Michigan going to vote? Here's a little fun fact for you. The state of Michigan would then vote for Donald Trump, because we have more Republican representatives than we have Democratic representatives. Okay, so it's not going to be a clear-cut win for a Democrat if it goes 269. So let's hope that that doesn't happen. All right, from the outside of this, guys, we see that Andrew Jackson basically says that this is a corrupt bargain. All right, and this label is going to go be on this election for the whole 4 years of John Quincy Adams' administration, and it's going to really get this fervent popular support. Okay, so here we see the electoral map. All right, looking at this, guys. Okay, electoral vote. Okay, so we see Andrew Jackson, clear winner of the electoral vote. Okay, clear winner of the popular vote, but the percentage, 43%. Because we have these 4 electorates, no one wins a clear majority. All right, so that's what we're ultimately going to see in this. Okay, all right, we're going to see that the symptoms of lockjaw. Okay, Henry Clay is going to be very much he sees this as being Andrew Jackson impugning his honor. All right. So here we see a pro-Clay cartoonist kind of sewing Andrew Jackson's mouth shut here in his general's uniform. Okay. But it's ultimately people are going to kind of feel as if this is a corrupt bargain. Okay. This is, and again, think about this move towards democratization. All right. We have a president of the United States. Okay. Look at how many votes Andrew Jackson got. Look at John Quincy Adams. Excuse me, John Quincy Adams. He gets almost a full 40,000 less votes than John Adams. 40,000 less people wanted John Quincy Adams to be president of the United States, but here we are with the John Quincy Adams presidency. Okay, so that label is going to stick. Okay, and yeah, there it is. Okay, now I will say, so in Jackson, he's going to have some things that are going to support this idea that this is a corrupt bargain. Okay, like we already talked about, the Bank of the United States, people are going to see that as being responsible for the Panic of 1819. Is it not? The currency definitely deflates. Okay, so currency becomes less valuable. That means the average person has less purchasing power, and that is put at the feet of the Bank of the United States. So people are going to be very much against that. National debt is rising. All right. And that's part to do with, we just got done fighting a war. Wars are expensive. Okay. We're going through an economic recession because of the Embargo Act at the end of Jefferson's administration. All right. And James Monroe is also going to be kind of seen as this power-hungry partisan, okay, that he takes this nationalism from the War of 1812 and kind of builds this popular support behind him. All right. And again, this idea that politicians are being bought off in backroom deals that are ultimately controlling government. So there's going to be a lot of things that are going to support Jackson's view amongst the common people. All right, I'm going to tell you. So Adams is probably one of the most. He's probably one of the most successful diplomats in American history. But all of these things are actually going to be during his tenure as Secretary of State for James Monroe. Okay, so Rush Bagot, it settles all of the extra things from the War of 1812. The British American Convention is going to resolve the boundary issues with Oregon. Okay, which I'll see in this one. So we set the 49th parallel, okay, as being the border between us and Canada. This borderline exists to this day. Okay, so this is the northern border of Montana. All right, and then we're going to have a 10-year joint occupation, okay, with Oregon. Okay, so at this time, okay, both the United States and Britain are going to occupy Oregon. All right, this is going to come back, guys, when we start talking about the candidacy of James K. Polk, the 11th president. And yes, there's a song for that. Okay, so those are two of his big successes. Okay, also the Adams-Onis Treaty. Okay, with the fact that Spain kind of gets nervous that Andrew Jackson's just kind of marching through there, fighting a war. All right, so they give us East Florida. They give us Florida in exchange for agreeing that we're not going to invade Louisiana or Texas. Okay, so that's another thing. Yeah, and we're also so this is the territorial expansions that we see. Okay, 1819, 1824. This is all John Quincy Adams. Okay, as Secretary of State, kind of doing all of these very big things, expanding the borders of the United States of America. Okay, but ultimately, this one's over Maine. Okay, another one that's resolved in 1842. That'll be in Van Buren's one. Oh, Dad, my dad's a funny guy. This is Marilyn Monroe. That's the joke. These are his PowerPoints still. Okay. Also, the Monroe Doctrine, which again, remember this, guys. This basically is us saying to this originally comes to be an idea from Great Britain. Great Britain's gonna be like, hey, man, you should definitely tell European powers to stay out of your backyard in exchange for staying out of European conflicts. And John Quincy Adams was like, yeah, that's a great idea, but we don't need you, Britain. Okay, we're going to do it ourselves. Okay, so John Quincy Adams comes up with the Monroe Doctrine, and it's basically this idea of self-defense. Okay, is that America is going to defend the Western Hemisphere because this is our backyard. Keep this in your back pocket because this is going to be important. We talk about a little guy named Theodore Roosevelt. Okay, so don't forget about this. Okay, so going forward, okay, man, and let's just all take a second to appreciate how ugly John Quincy Adams is. Poor guy. Okay, maybe that's why there's not a statue of him. All right, I think there should be. Okay, but gosh, look at that mug. Okay, definitely in the running for ugliest presidents. Okay, so he is trying to expand the government power. Okay, he ultimately, unfortunately, during his presidency, he does not accomplish very much. Okay, so politically did little to prepare for the election of 1828. He was a great diplomat, a poor candidate. He was not a good politician. All right. And on the other hand, Andrew Jackson's been building up all of this. He's been basically talking trash. He's on the Twitter of the day, which is the Democratic leaning newspapers. He's saying corrupt bargain. He's making accusations that John Quincy Adams wants to be a king. All right. And this is going to bring us to the birth of the Democratic Party. Okay. All right. So again, this is kind of the Democratic Party, and something that we're actually going to look at in class Thursday and Friday, respectively, is how it's really difficult. I say it's not difficult; it's impossible. You can't take the Democratic Party of 1828 and directly draw a line between the Democratic Party of 2020. All right, and there's a lot of things that we're going to talk between now and the end of this school year that's going to kind of tell you exactly why it is you can't do that. Okay, but one thing that I'm going to tell you guys right now is this party, the Democratic Party of 1828, was the states' rights limited government party. Okay, so this was basically they saw the true ideals of Thomas Jefferson as being the core to their identity. All right, if we look at the Democratic Party today, I would definitely not associate states' rights with the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party today is definitely more pro large federal government. Okay, all right, so that's one clear reason why we can see that. Okay, but it did link popular democracy with a defense of slavery. Okay, so it basically said, all right, and we're going to see the same argument against LGBTQ rights. We're going to see the same argument against civil rights. We're going to see the same argument anytime, basically. People in the States are going to be like, you know what? It's not that we're racist. It's not that we don't like black people. It's not that we don't want them to vote. It's not that we don't like gay people. It's not that it's not that. Okay. It's the fact that the federal government has no place telling the states how it is that they should run their individual democracies. Okay. So we are going to see this same defense, the states' rights defense. And I hate to do air quotes with it because we have a constitutional amendment in there. Okay. That's firmly in there. Okay. That anything not delegated to the federal government goes to the states. Okay. But that is going to be where the defense of slavery is going to live. Okay. So when people tell you that the Civil War was about states' rights, it wasn't. Okay. That's what they mean. Okay. It's states' rights to own slaves. All right. So that's where that argument's going to come from. All right. And again, it does this great job of united Southern planters with Northern plain folks. Okay. So going on here, guys, looking at this is, again, talking about like nastiness here. Okay. So go ahead and look at this. Some account of some of the bloody deeds of General Jackson. General Jackson was a famous dueler. Okay, when people would impugn his honor, all right, he would challenge them to duels, and in a lot of counts, he was pretty darn good at it. So he killed a lot of people. Okay, so these accusations of the fact that he had these are all the people that he had murdered. Here's one: the modern Balaam and his ass. Okay, so this is basically making this argument that he is basically trying to. I don't know what these are actually saying here, but it's talking about the stubbornness here. We see Martin Van Buren kind of ushering the donkey, okay, into Washington D.C. All right, so this is intended to insult Andrew Jackson, but Andrew Jackson's actually going to embrace it, and he's going to adopt that as being like the mascot for the Democratic Party. Okay, so that's, to this day, Democrats have the donkey as their mascot, and it comes from basically they're trying to insult him. All right, all sorts of slander. Rachel Donaldson Jackson. This is a really sad story. Rachel Donaldson Jackson, actually, she was previously married. Something about that marriage, actually, it didn't legally go through. All right, so technically, her first marriage wasn't annulled. So people made accusations that she was a bigamist, that she was a polygamist, okay, that she had more than one husband. All right, and she really got dragged into the political mudslinging. And she ultimately dies in the election of 1828. And Andrew Jackson very much kind of puts the political mudslinging as the cause for why it is that she ultimately dies. Okay, we're going to also see that this is going to be a huge win, okay, for Jackson over John Quincy Adams. All right, and this is kind of similar between 2016 and 2020. Okay, 2016 had a really low voter turnout. Okay, 2020 has already surpassed it with early voting. Okay, so we see the same thing in the 1828 election. Very limited turnout in 1826. I'm sorry, in 1824. People didn't think that their vote really counted for much. Okay, because of all these accusations of corrupt bargain, voting goes through the roof, and Andrew Jackson wins convincingly. Okay, so he basically he takes all of the West, all of the South. The only places that stay true to John Quincy Adams is New England, where he is obviously from. Okay, so he gets crushed 178 to 83. Okay, I want you guys to kind of notice here, though, popular vote's much closer. Okay, popular vote's much closer. And again, why is that? It's a little thing we like to call the 3/5 compromise that is still very much in play, okay, in the South. Okay, so we definitely see increased democratization in the North. Okay, so more people have the rights to vote. Okay, we still seeing that being very limited, especially by the 3/5 compromise. Okay, which in places like South Carolina, there was more African Americans than whites. Very few people were voting for these 11 electorates, and a lot of those people were actually that contribute towards those 11 electorates were actual physical property. All right, so this is going to go into the people's inauguration. It's going to be wild, guys. All right, okay, ain't no party like a campaign party, because a campaign party don't stop. People, they opened up the White House. This is inside the White House. People were cutting like swaths of the drapes. There was people getting drunk everywhere. It was wild. All right, it was wild. Okay, here we see John Marshall swearing in Andrew Jackson, which is they're going to be kind of like opposites here, and this is going to lead us into the presidency, the presidency of Andrew Jackson, which interestingly enough, I find this fascinating. Very much makes this accusation that the federal government is amassing all of this power, and he's saying that states' rights, power to the people. But when he gets into the federal government, much like Thomas Jefferson, he himself is going to start to amass all of this political power into the presidency. All right. And we're going to talk about that more as we go here. But people are going to make the accusation of calling him King Andrew the First. All right. So there we go, guys. So that's what I got. This is this is a divisive election here in 2020. Okay, but I'm also here to tell you that it